Alrighty, y'all, we are now 3 hours and 12 minutes into testing on the PTR. I have worked on a single item and figured out how it works. Now, rather than make you sit through all the calculations and all of the proofs and the ways and the ideology that we use to be able to test this, I'm just going to tell you it straight up. This amulet's unique ability, even though it has a plus symbol on it, is currently acting as a multiplier. So rather than gaining additional additive critical strike damage, this is just a new multiplier of your damage. Because if you haven't read Locrins, it's actually a very interesting mechanic. Up to 100 maximum essence, the base essence that you have, it's going to increase your critical strike chance. So if you had a perfect roll on this and you had 100 maximum essence, you would gain 50% total crit. Now, this does work. I already tested whether or not it gives us the amount of critical strike chance that it says that it would, but it's the second part that was very interesting and what needed to legitimately be tested here. It then says each point of additional maximum essence you have above 100 will grant you additive critical strike damage. See how it has a plus symbol there? But it'll grant you 1% additive critical strike damage instead of the critical strike chance. So up to 100, you gain crit chance. Anything above 100, you gain, supposedly, additive critical strike damage. So if you look at my current 211 essence, I have 111 essence above base 100. That means that I'm gaining a 2.11 multiplier on my amulet, as well as completely capping out my critical strike chance all the way up to 100% from a single item. So that's pretty bananas wild. Now, if you're a nerd like me, let me go ahead and show you how we proved it and the methodology, just so we could get really concrete evidence of this working in this way. Because while it was fairly easy to see it just with a layman's eye, when you're dealing with increasing your base stats and increasing your additive damage and then possibly increasing your additive damage versus increasing a new multiplier as opposed to that, it gets a little bit tricky just being able to cast Bone Spirit a couple times and say, yes, this is working this way. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go get a set of data representative of our current Bone Spirit damage without using this amulet. Taking off the amulet, we're going to lose intelligence from all stats, we're going to lose additive damage, and we're going to lose maximum resource. Just to be able to offset a little bit of this, let's go ahead and use an amulet that also has a greater affix on maximum resource. It's a little bit different here, but I promise you we included this in the calculation as well. And then putting on our base amulet, we went and cast Bone Spirit a bunch of times and we collected data about how much damage we were doing. And while this data set is not nearly big enough to get a conclusive, like 100% accurate representation of the data that we're doing, I just wanted to use it as a baseline to see if we could see it very easily in our testing. But what you notice is that we're doing on average about like 2.25 million damage. We had a min of 1.8 million, max of 2.5 million, and an average of 2.27. Now, what we have to do is we also have to do the math to figure out how much our current additive damage is, how much our current intelligence bonus is, how much our current base multiplier from how Bone Spirit actually interacts with essence, and then also our ossified essence key passive, because all those things are going to change when we put on the new amulet. With our new maximum essence, our base multiplier is representative of a 9.61 total multiplier. Our ossified essence goes up slightly to a 1.773 multi. Our intelligence goes up very slightly as well, up to a 2.332 multi. And then our additive damage, which we are calculating as if not only we gain the 115 from the item itself, but our new maximum essence total, which is a whopping 204, so an additional 104 additive crit damage, and we get up to a total of 1,319 additive damage. And what that means is that our minimum damage now should be somewhere around 2.3 million, our maximum damage should be somewhere around 3.1 million, and our average damage should be somewhere around 2.8 million. But instead of that, if it is working as a multiplier, so the difference between this equation right here, you'll notice that 14 is representative of our additive damage multiplier. Whereas here, we would theoretically be gaining a new 2.04 multi, and we would slightly reduce our additive damage. But if that were the case, we would expect a minimum damage of 4.4 million, a maximum damage of 5.8 million, and an average damage of 5.3 million. Well, just putting on the amulet and casting a Bone Spirit real quick, and you'll notice that we're doing a whopping ton of nearly 5.8 million damage. And if you take the exact same number of data points and you go ahead and compare them, you'll see that we were getting a minimum damage of 4.3 million, a maximum damage of 6.6, so actually above what we ended up here, so our data set is not necessarily complete, and then an average damage of 5.4, really close to the expected average. So yeah, the new amulet's just a multiplier. Now, before we all run off and say this must be best in slot on every single Necromancer build, remember that comes with the caveat that you need to increase your maximum resource to be able to get this benefit. Sure, on the amulet itself, it gives you this, and if you were to get a greater affix and masterwork credit, it would be a huge amount, right? We'd already be expecting 39 just from the greater affix. But the only other places on your character, ignoring unique items right now, would be your helmet and a focus, because only those 3 items as base can get maximum resource as an affix. Now you could also use something like Tybalt's Will, which can also get a greater affix of 20 for maximum resource. That's another option for a build. But to be able to get the insane amount of damage that this thing is offering, you're probably going to be looking at bone builds, most notably, since they naturally benefit from having more maximum resource. This is my Bone Spirit Necromancer at 204 essence. I'm currently using the Requiem aspect, 7 per minion. Turns out that Bone Prison is a minion. And with the new boots that increase the size, we actually have more sections of Bone Prison. So you actually gain a huge amount of maximum essence just from that one aspect and these boots. Now, that's perfectly fine on a build that's going to naturally benefit from them, but now we're talking about 2 different slots on a build like maybe Sever or the Blood builds that don't necessarily want to be using the Requiem aspect. There's the other part too, where this is a build that wants to overpower 100% of the time with Banished Lord's Talisman, and Banished Lord's Talisman says bare minimum I gain a 1.5 multi and a 1.6 multi whenever I crit an overpower, and since I can crit and overpower 100% of the time, that is a huge amount of total damage, right? If I were to take my base damage and multiply that by 1.5 and then multiply that by 1.6, that's actually representative of a 2.4 multi. You take the total bonuses from these 2 things, and that's ignoring additional overpower multipliers and additional additive damage, etc. But this does open up the door for fixing critical strike chance across the majority of builds and possibly benefiting from building into maximum resource, again, from it on your helmet, it on a focus, as well as it on Tybalt's Will in the amulet itself. And even if you just put those 3 things together without masterworking anything, on greater affixes, that is 60, plus this one would be 39, that's 99, and then drinking something like a resource cost potion, which would give you an additional 25. And now we're talking about 124, which would be a 2.24 multi for 2 affixes and needing to use a very specific set of unique pants. Maybe this amulet kind of fits into the vast majority of builds. It's definitely something that's going to need to be tested out further, because there's going to be optimizations across all of the builds as we get deeper into the PTR. But I want to hear from you what you think this thing naturally fits onto, understanding now that it is a multiplier. Now here's the problem. Either the tooltip's wrong or this item is coded wrong. This may not intentionally be a multiplier, but it would be kind of weird for an amulet just to give additive damage as its unique aspect. So I'm leaning towards it's a multiplier that's not being represented correctly in the tooltip, but let me know what you think down below. Let me think about your theory crafts. We have so much to test in the PTR. Hopefully this kind of enables you or gives you some kind of inspiration to be able to test it across the other types of builds. I know that I will be as well, but let me know. Sound off down in the comments. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you haven't already subscribed, leave a like on it as well. It would help me out a ton. And I hopefully will be seeing you in the next video.